The highly anticipated Game of Thrones prequel House of the Dragon stars newcomer Milly Alcock as Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen. She made her big debut during the show's global premiere on August 21st, and she's already made quite the impression as the young Princess Rhaenyra. Although having had previous acting roles on Australian TV, the rising star is a newcomer to Hollywood. Here are some things about Milly Alcock that you probably didn't know. She is Australian. Amelia May Alcock was born on April 11, 2000, and was raised by her parents in Sydney, Australia, alongside her two brothers. Even as a young child, she found that she was drawn to the arts and admitted to flaunt that she spent her childhood obsessing over breakfast at Tiffany's. She first got her taste in acting when she was in a school play when she was 6 years old and went on attended Sydney's Newtown High School of Performing Arts. In an interview with Vogue Australia, she said, "I think I got my interest in acting because everybody was uninterested in acting. I grew up in a predominantly rugby union household, it doesn't make any sense." She made her acting debut in 2014. She played a small role in the romantic comedy Wonderland in 2014, which served as her debut performance. Throughout her teens, she continued to make appearances in various shows like High Life, Janet King, A Place to Call Home, Pine Gap, and Fighting Season. Her breakthrough role was in the Foxtel comedy drama series Upright as runaway teenager Meg. She dropped out of high school to pursue acting. In 2019, Milly Alcock had to make a decision that would alter her entire life. She had just auditioned for a new project, Upright, that would require her to move away from home into rural Australia. Her final exams were coming up, and ultimately, she decided to leave school behind in favor of the show. She told Stellar magazine, "I was like, I either have to sit all of my exams in rural Australia or I was just going to drop out of school. So I dropped out because it was never really my thing." Speaking to Miss Vogue Australia, Alcock admitted she has no regrets. "I knew that this opportunity would be so much more of a valuable experience than getting my piece of paper. I was like, no, this is what I've been working towards, and I've been given this amazing opportunity with this amazing cast, with this beautiful script." For her performance, Alcock was nominated for Best Comedy Performer at the 10th AACTA Awards, making her one of the youngest nominees in the category. She still had a part-time job after Upright. Even though the Upright series proved to be hugely successful and even led to another role in the 2020 show The Gloaming, Milly Alcock had yet to really make it into the big time. Additionally, the COVID pandemic made it a little harder for her to pursue her dream career. As she later told Stellar magazine, Alcock was still living a pretty normal life at home in Australia at the time. She even had a pretty unglamorous part-time job. She said, "I was washing dishes in a restaurant, living in my mom's attic." She didn't realize she was getting the audition of a lifetime. After a slow time during the pandemic, Milly Alcock eventually landed the role of a lifetime in the Game of Thrones prequel, House of the Dragon. However, when the actress first got the audition, she didn't even realize what a big deal it was. She told the Evening Standard, "I got a self-tape for an unknown HBO project, and I went to shoot it with a friend of mine. He said, 'This is a Game of Thrones scene. This is the scene with Arya Stark.'" As Alcock later told Hype, getting the part was very fluky. After just 2 self-tapes in Australia, she landed the part. Like 2 weeks later, I got a phone call and my life changed. Alcock just so happened to be at her friend's house when she heard the news. In an interview with HBO Max, she admitted, "I asked if he had a bottle of wine, he did, so I just got drunk." She wasn't always a Game of Thrones fan. Alcock wasn't a part of the fantasy frenzy when Game of Thrones first started, despite the fact that it attracted millions of viewers over the course of its 8-season run. She said to Vulture of her lack of knowledge of the show prior to House of the Dragon, "I was completely oblivious. I was about 10 when it came out, and it wasn't really age-appropriate, you know what I mean. Fantasy isn't my go-to genre, but I watched it over pre-production and fell in love with it and understood why it had the amount of success that it did. It's very good." She moved to London permanently after filming House of the Dragon. When House of the Dragon began filming, Alcock left her home in Australia and moved to a new apartment in London. She told Hype, "I jumped on a plane and moved to London. I was staying in Primrose Hill, very la-di-da, and it was my first time living on my own." Living alone in a foreign country during the epidemic wasn't easy at first, but the cast and crew helped her adjust. They were aware that I was a 21-year-old by myself in a global pandemic on the other side of the world, doing a job where I was so out of my depth. After House of the Dragon finished filming, Milly Alcock decided to stay in London, moving to the trendy east part of the city. She told Sean, "I haven't been in one place for a very long time because I've been working. So I'm really happy just settling and just slowing down in London and moving into my first flat." She took up photography during lockdown. While acting is currently her #1 passion, she's also developed a flair for photography. She picked up the hobby during lockdown and has posted a selection of her stylish shots on her Instagram account. As the actress explained to Flaunt, she enjoys taking pictures of surprising moments of beauty she sees around her, such as a group of children playing in the street in Paris. She said, "I think as humans, we are inherently drawn to beauty. Beauty is completely subjective. Some people might see the photo of the kids in Paris and say, oh, the composition is wrong, it's a bit slanted. I think the beauty is in the mistakes because it's alive." For Alcock, photography is simply another means of self-expression. Rather than trying to take photos that are aesthetically pleasing, she focuses on capturing her subject honestly. She said, "The ability to control an image and evoke a certain feeling is what drew it to me. And not always searching for the aesthetic, but a movement and a motive of the person in front of the lens that gets you interested." She is adjusting to life in the spotlight. The first episode of HBO's House of the Dragon was watched by a record-breaking 10 million people. The second episode was watched by 10.2 million. Needless to say, Milly Alcock shot to fame in the space of a week. As the show was released to the public, she began to realize just how big it was. She told the New York Post, "It's only been in this part that we've been reminded of how big it is. I don't really know how to approach it. It's extremely intimidating. So, I've been a bit more reclusive than I normally would be." She claims that the response from her fans has been overwhelmingly positive and that fans have camped out in front of her hotel waiting for signatures. She told the Evening Standard that as she attracted more and more attention, she had to learn to turn on her public persona as she got more and more attention. And then you have to, switch on. I mean, I've only ever lived my life as me and now people care. It wasn't like I've done other big jobs. There's a lot she still wants to do. In 2022, Milly Alcock has successfully taken the world by storm. But the young actress isn't satisfied yet. She still has big plans for her future and she's just as driven as ever. She told Vogue Australia, "I was always hypnotized by cinema and would get this sense of being overwhelmed every time I watched a film. It was a weird feeling. Through that intuition, I felt like this is what I have to do for the rest of my life." So, what is in store for Alcock for the rest of her life? Well, as she told Scon, she'd love to take on classic roles like Hedda Gabler or even All About Eve. She also has ambitions to show her versatility. She told the Evening Standard, "I want to play a boxer," or "I want to play a valley girl." Ultimately, she wants to keep learning. "I want to learn skills through this job. I mean, I'd rather take a great script over a skill, but why not do both?" One thing's for sure, we certainly haven't seen the last of Milly Alcock.